Assalamu alaikum, good morning. Um, on the stage, we have esteemed bankers, uh, starting from the leftmost, Mr. Hassan Rashid, Managing Director and CEO, Prime Bank, Mr. Mahbub Rahman, Managing Director and CEO, Mutual Trust Bank, and we have Sohel R.K. Hussain, Managing Director and CEO, Meghna Bank. He has just stepped out. He should be joining us in a couple of minutes. We'll start right after he joins us. Just to give a preamble to the discussion we are going to have today, is something very close to my heart, as well as I'm sure most of the people sitting in this hall room, they all talk about it, or they all chat about it now and then. Redefining banking in the digital age. And the three pieces that we are going to discuss: collaboration, innovation, and customer-centric strategies. Sorry, Sohel bhai, we started off without you. No worries. So, about 29 years back, the historic remark, I must say, Bill Gates made that banking will not be required, a bank will not be required, but banking will be. And after 29 years, that question is still asked every day to the bankers that we have all around, whether whether banks are still required or not. Because everything that we do is digital today. The smartphone that we have, that is the solution to everything that we do. Now, Bangladesh perspective is a bit different. How Bangladesh is managing or wading its way through, or Bangladesh banking system is wading through. Let's hear it from the esteemed banking leaders that we have here. Let's take the opportunity and ask them. I'll start off with Sohel bhai, if you permit. Just a couple of minutes from you that, there are three pieces of the discussion today. How to redefine the banking, and collaboration, innovation, and customer-centric approach. Now, when it comes to collaboration, there is a common saying that we hear from the fintech founders or the people associated with fintechs around, that legacy or traditional banks in Bangladesh, they're very non-cooperative with regards to collaborating with fintechs. Your comment on that?
Rahel, thank you very much, and good morning to you all. I will not say that the view is totally wrong. Banks have come across banks have 1,000 years history of distributing their products through physical branches, bricks and mortars. And over the last 30 years, especially in Bangladesh, in the last 10 to 15 years, we have these new channels which makes it far more simpler, cost-effective, and commercially viable for banks to reach the masses. And not only to reach the masses, to approach different segments of customers and to provide them with services, tailored products in a very agile manner. But for that, we need a collaborative approach. So it's taken time for the banking community as well to actually appreciate the extent to which we can actually increase our business. So microcredit loans, small loans, which used to be the domain of NGOs. Now you can see banks coming up with products for these being distributed by digital solutions. For example, in Meghna Bank, we have a very collaborative arrangement with an NGO, and we're expanding that arrangement, whereby an NGO, a fintech company, and Meghna Bank, we're going to finance farmers, small SME retail shops, S-segment customers. And the way to do that is to leverage the NGO's strength, presence, to leverage the fintech companies' services. I'll give you a very simple one product example of that. We were looking at financing livestock. So the question was, it's not possible for banks to go verify livestock. So the fintech company, using their facial recognition, GPS chips, they could actually solve some of the credit problems we had. So we are actually able to launch this product, a loan, which would be maybe 50,000 taka or 75,000 taka or even less. But in the past, that wouldn't have been possible. So the mindset, which is corporate, letter of credits, deposits, that needs to change. And that needs to change not only on the side of credit loans, but that also needs to change in the time of, in terms of what kind of deposit facilities, banking facilities can we give. Because in the coming days, what's happening is customer accessibility to user-friendly products from single points, that is going to be extremely important. Now, if a bank does not come up with a combination of this, it will be very difficult for them to expand customer base in the future. We have customers who are generational, some who are not familiar or comfortable with technology, but as the day goes by, I mean, if you simply look at some of the numbers which Mr. Arfan, former colleague of ours, was pointing out, look at the internet penetration of in Bangladesh. I think it's around 61%. Look at the sales of smartphones. So these are driving customer demands. And if banks want to be relevant, we will have to change our mindset, move away from paper, look at not only distribution channels to reach customers, but also to automate, digitalize everything within the bank. It's all about information. So you cannot just go to a customer, you will not know who to go to unless your information are digitalized. Nor can you go to any, nor can you have access to customers unless there is open bank sharing through APIs where all banks can access customer data. Why should a customer, if he wants to open an online KYC account, online account, have to submit his KYC documents to 10 different banks separately? Or if he wants to submit his financial data or his tax data. So if he makes that available, and I think that's a direction which is already there in many countries, especially India. I won't talk about the developed countries where their CIBs are much, much more expanded than what we have over here. But all of this, if we can go into that, it will make life easier for our customers. It will reduce costs for the banks and all those segments which in the past, the regulators, the government wanted us, the banks, to go into, but we couldn't because they were not commercially viable. Well, the technology makes them commercially viable. And if we don't do it, then the telcos, the fintechs, will find partners who will do it for them.
Well, Solmay, just to interrupt you a bit in there, I mean, thank you. You have touched on very significant points, especially like things like open banking, how to create that platform and everything, because we need regulatory support for those areas. We'll try to touch on that a bit later. But generally speaking, just a supplementary question to you. Generally speaking, the whole banking industry, as we know that we have 61 banks operating now. I mean, the example that you put in from Meghna Bank's perspective, is it across the banking industry what we are seeing, the collaboration with fintechs and banks? Because the frustration that we hear from the fintech side is much more than what is supposed to be happening. And you have picked on the example of Indian market. India is the neighboring country where things are happening in a much better manner. How many federal banks we have in Bangladesh amongst the 61 banks? I'm not quoting about DBS, but how many federal banks we have?
So, absolutely. With 61 banks, 35 non-banking financial institutions, you would expect the appreciation would be far higher. It's not. The fintech companies are still going to banks, and the banks are still trying to think of them in terms of how they fit into their traditional models. So the thinking needs to be different. A few months back actually, in Meghna, we were talking about our MFS. Now you have big players like Bikash, Nagad, Rocket, etc. So we were looking at, okay, what can we do different? So one of the first things we did was we tied up with Paywell, we tied up with Grameen. So that gave us almost 500,000 points where we can cash in, cash out. There are now collaborative things going on where you will have virtual Taka cards or credit cards or debit cards, which will be part of APIs of MFS. Several banks are working on this. But the fintech companies have requirements where they also need to understand that the communication goes both ways. Banks are highly regulated, and there's a reason for the regulation. And the fintech companies needs to also understand better what is it that the bank is looking for. Customers, yes, but we want security of delivery of products. We are custodians of depositors' money. We become custodians of depositors' payments and at times indirectly their delivery. So I think the journey which is mentioned, it did happen even with us. When the fintech companies started coming in 3 years back or 5 years back, we felt this was new. We were not sure we could do this. But I think the drive by the government, Digital Bangladesh, Smart Bangladesh, A2I, then the central bank's changing of the regulatory landscape, where they're making it now easier. And the awareness in the customer group, it's astonishing how during the pandemic, customer awareness has changed. So that is driving us. And I think the fintech companies will find that the banks are much more receptive. Yes, there are times when the fintech companies will say, we want to give loans to these customers. Bank, and please give us funding. In those cases, banks may say that, okay, let's talk about the credit score sheet, and can we do that because that's our core strength. So these are some of the things which comes up when we talk to the fintechs.
Now, what I hear is, from your side, representing the banking industry, what I hear is a positive attitude or a positive response that the willingness is there. But what we want to see more and more is across the industry, all 61, if not all 61, at least the majority of the banks coming forward with that intention. So we'll just move on to Maubhai for the next piece and try to have your feel around the innovation perspective. Now, what we have seen in last, if I have the liberty to comment that in last 10, 15 years, especially in the payments landscape, we have seen a revolution. I mean, Rocket, Bikash, Nogod, they have created revolution. And this was pure or sheer example of innovation. Now, how much of innovation would you say that the legacy banks or the traditional banks, and especially with regards to the retail and MSME perspective, has been done or have been done collectively from within the banking industry?
Thank you, Rahel. Basically, you see, innovation definitely one is the innovation that is taking place on a regular basis. Other is like certain innovations basically event triggered. Like if you look at digital banking revolution, it has started happening from 2008 when global meltdown happened. People start losing faith on the banking industry. Then startups coming in. It was there since 60s, but from the 2008, it took off. And if you look at recent one, there's COVID. COVID time, you have seen how the entire industry came forward. Even when we talk about innovation, we have seen in the government banks, with due respect, I'm not trying to sort of shame them, but that's how they are because of the overall regulatory body, overall governance. They're a little slower than the private sector commercial bank, but we have seen how they have come up as well during COVID time. So it is like an event, and we have seen to stop customer from coming to the branches, to the networks. Many banks took number of steps basically to keep this customer away from the branches so that they can carry out the transactions sitting in their home. So we have seen many banks coming with a lot of app, coming up with a green pin so that you don't need to come to bank branches or you need to go to the head office, do this. So these are the things that have happened. Then what we have seen that, you see, demand is changing, and also we can see that the generation which is Gen Z, they're coming in. Their demand is changing, and if you look at our median of Bangladesh, it is basically 26, 27, and they are the future. So banks need to change. As Sohail was saying, that what the traditional mindset was that bank will do everything. So that means you have to keep on investing as well. And also in the traditional bank, starting from top to bottom, they have a different mindset. All are not in sync, especially in terms of embracing the technology, embracing innovation, embracing changes, because we always think that we want to in the comfort zone. Whatever we had been doing, we want to keep on doing it. So we don't really like to see changes in the process, because that is sort of discomforting for all of us. So innovation also doesn't necessarily mean it is technology only. It is also process reengineering. What you had been doing, possibly that needs a change. So we need to basically focus on customers, because at the end of the day, if the customers are there, we are there. If they're not there, we are not there. So we need to be demand-centric. We had been always been supply-centric with whatever we had on the shelf. We tried to sell it to the customer, they were understanding their need. So what do we, as a bank, I think most of the banks have started working on that, how we can basically satisfy the customer. Yes, we have got too many banks. We have got 11,000 branches. But the thing is that all are very, if you look at the banks, the products that you have are all the same, almost all the same, the basic products. And now what we need to do, we need to come up with number of tools that will basically, one is empowering customers. When ATM came in, you remember, in the late 90s, it was like an empowering customer to a limited scale, definitely, because banking is like you have to come to the branch within a time frame, you have to carry out transactions. But when ATM came, you had some level of empowerment. Yes, you can go to ATM, draw money at your own good time. So that's what is happening now because of the fact with the app that is coming in, you are now can carry out transactions, the NPSB, EFTN, what Bangladesh Bank has facilitated. So it is innovation not only from bank side, it is also important how regulators are pacing up with it as well. Because at times we see that, yes, we are changing, But from the regulation side, there are issues. Like when the EFTN sorry, BSH came, we had a lot of issues. Lot of issues that were there because there are some changes that were recovered in the Bank Negotiation Instrument Act as well in terms of settlement. So that is very, very important that in terms of innovation, how regulator is taking care of it, like regulator can have a sandboxing sort of thing. So in that way, they can keep on trying and then that can be regulated as well. So I think these are the things that is very, very important. So innovation is very much needed sitting today because our world is fast changing and demand of this new generation is changing fast. So we as bank need to keep on changing. We need to partner with fintech because you see, after 2000, we have seen how the digital loan has taken place. How fast, because they don't want to wait for 7 days, 10 days. Now we are talking about digital banking. Loan has to be given in in fact, 2 minutes. We have seen some banks have done that as well. Yes, you want to say something?
I just wanted to interrupt here and say that what you are saying is definitely the reality. Because the Gen Z, if you are talking about the urban customer base, the Gen Z and the millennials, their taste, preference, requirement is changing rapidly. So they want things instantaneously. But with regards from within the banking industry, whether the bankers, let me blame ourselves, that whether we are putting our innovation hat and doing something, or we are keeping our arms to ourselves and saying that we want to do everything by ourselves and we don't want to partner as much. Whether that is happening more or the collaboration or the innovation.
That is happening. Yeah. You see the digital banking license, if you look at how many banks have also come up with.
I have a supplementary question to you on that.
So you can see many banks are coming with. So they also understand the need of it because of the fact it is also not only because see, look at bKash. The MFS has come in 2011. And by this time, they had about 20 crore accounts. Look at telcos, where they have gone. And look at the banking industry, where we are. So you see, in the MFS industry, I think there are 4,000 crore taka transactions every day. Every month, there is 1 lakh plus crore taka transactions. So you can very well understand the breadth and width of it. So we also need to go for innovation to reach the bottom end of the pyramid. It's very, very important, as Arfan was saying about the inclusivity. If you're really looking forward to that, that's the only way out, because you usually can't do it. Like in our case, recently we have done some loan, a small loan. We have given to 479 farmers 6 crore taka. And we had to put up 479 credit memorandum, a small one-pager. But you can understand the pain that that particular branch had to go through. So these are the things we need to basically do away with. We need to have LOS, absolutely. We need to have the scorecard model in place so that you can process things faster. You can make yourself more efficient. You see, nowadays, efficiency is the way out. In Bangladesh, if you look at banking revenue, it is being dried out. Trade, not too much trade. FX, income is gone. So you have loan margin, interest margin is going as well because you have got sort of lending rate limitations, smart plus 3. So what do? We need to be efficient. How can we be efficient? We can be efficient only through innovation. That is the way out.
I agree with you, totally agree with you. I mean, borrowing from what you just mentioned, I mean, starting from underwriting to analytics to sourcing to marketing, each aspect or each component of the whole process can be collaborated with fintech partners.
You need to use AI, RPA, very, very important. Machine learning, these are things that is very important.
The major school of thought out in the market, they keep complaining that bankers want to do everything by themselves. They don't want to collaborate. So if we have to join all these pieces together, then only we can have federal banks more like here in Bangladesh.
Absolutely. Like in MTB, we're trying to partner with a number of fintechs. We have done it iFarmers, XYZ, Talikhata. So we are doing it because we can see the opportunities. And importantly, the loans that are given,
the thing is that Meghna Bank, MTB, but there are still 59 other banks remaining.
I'm sure they're coming up.
That needs to be more, in practice.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if I can just, sorry.
We are in close competition for this very large virtual card transaction which will redefine the existing landscape. They're slightly ahead of us, but let's see how it goes.
Like one of the things we have done in the debit card, we have created virtual debit card. So customers do not, like debit card, what is happening? Physical debit card, you have to come to the branch to take your debit card. But we have created an option. You can now create your debit card by yourself going to the app. So virtually now, an individual can open account just staying wherever he is. He can also create his debit card. So till now, you can open account, but you have to come to the branch for debit card. But the one we have just recently introduced, we have now created as well. So these are the things that you need to do.
I think one of the biggest things for one of the biggest things for banks is customer onboarding costs. And I think it is only if we tie up with fintechs, telcos, and others who already have large customer bases that we can reduce onboarding costs. Banks have the highest customer onboarding costs. You'll be surprised that it's more expensive than telcos, than Bcash, than Nogod. So
No, most certainly. I mean, that is proven over the time. I mean, over the last decade or so, it is being proven that customer acquisition cost has been lowered significantly by the MFS. Moving on to Hassan Bhai, with regards to the customer-centric strategy. Now, again, it is interlinked: collaboration, innovation, and customer-centric strategy. And borrowing the words from Mahbub Bhai while he was mentioning that whether the banks are thinking about the customers and innovating or collaborating or coming up with solutions. A point-blank question to you. How many data scientists do you have in your bank or across the banking industry as we speak? Because we already have a mine of data or customer pool within the banks. How much are we doing for them? And how much of customer-centric approach we are taking for them?
Thank you. It's a very good question, and you asked me a point-blank question. I'm giving you a point-blank answer. At Prime, we don't have any data scientists. As regard to other banks, I'm not aware, but I'm sure you don't have, I don't know, but probably Meghna has. But I think the industry as a whole, I think, is yet to grapple with the concept of a data mining or a data scientist or a data analyst, okay? But I think I just want to go back and to the point about the innovation. You asked a question, whether we, the bankers, and I'm sure a lot of bankers are sitting in this room, are we wearing our innovation hat, right? I think tomorrow morning, at least 3 of us, when we will go back to our office, yes, we will be wearing the innovation hat. But the challenge is, I'm sure it's true for 3 of us, the moment we will sit in our chair, our head of credit is going to come and say, guess what, September is coming up, we need to restructure a few loans, until without that the NPL is going to go through the roof and so forth. So I think the issue is, in terms of qualitative thinking, yes, I think me, myself, and my colleagues here, we do think about it. But the ground reality is, time spent actually executing, I think it gets lost given the challenges that we are navigating through. But I think you asked a very important question, and I think I'm sure during this question and answer session, you will ask us that particular topic. As a bank, you know, we talk about our loan portfolio, we talk about our deposit customer base and all that. But I think very seldom we realize that what we are sitting on is the customer data, customer information. And there's a huge lot that we can do, and the rest of the world has done it. Now, in order to do that, I think whilst we need data scientists, analysts, and all that, we need to clean up this data. I remember in my previous organization, we took this initiative to clean up the data, because What is important is, in all the core banking systems, we have many fields we need to be captured about the customer. And unfortunately, when either the account is open or when the loan is disbursed, all the fields are not captured or populated. So as a result, what happened subsequently when you want to capture these data and want to make some sense out of this data, the links are missing. But I agree with you. I think the first point, and I see you have a customer-centric strategy. If I were to fold it customer/segment strategy, and it's extremely important both for retail and SME that we look at this data and we try to make sense of the data. But we cannot make sense of the data unless data is accurately captured. So it's paramount and important.
No, thank you for that. I mean, most definitely. I mean, what Arfan Bhai showed in his keynote, there is a huge unbanked population out there. As banks, we have targets to meet, obviously, but we also have our social responsibility to bring those unbanked population within the banking channel. At the same time, the Gen Zs or millennials, their preferences, taste, everything is changing. They want everything instantaneously. They want banking to be done like listening to music on Spotify or watching movie on Netflix. They don't want to be, dealing in different ways or doing a transaction in e-commerce site. Now, you have, say, as a bank, maybe 10 lakh customers. You can do a data sanity check of those 10 lakhs and come up with 5 lakhs. And 5 lakhs is a pretty decent number to start with. And, a big revenue pool is being missed out, because there are fintechs who are willing to help you. Now, my supplementary question to Mahbub Bhai, with regards to the digital banking initiative that is being taken by the regulator, that's the buzzword for last 2 months now. And we have seen DG10 coming up, 10 traditional legacy banks joining, aligning with each other. Now, isn't it, there is a school of thought that again, bankers are keeping things to the bankers. They are not collaborating with any tech company. 10 banks, they're trying to do everything by themselves. How do you answer to that school of thought?
Thank you. That's also a question of the board as well. Because I think my board has asked for it. I know our board has asked for it as well, because we are already doing banking. Why do we need digital banking? In fact, the last board meeting, there is a presentation as well. Our head of digital banking sitting there, Khaled. So you see, as I said, as Hassan was saying as well, you see, every day when we come, we have a different mindset as well. We come with an innovation mindset. We come with that. We'll do certain things, but we get busy with other things. And if you look at the MFS, which have started as a subsidiary, have done very well. Have done very well as compared to the MFS of a bank. Because for them, it's like a product in the shelf. But for that particular company, it's like, this is what I'm going to do. So the mindset...
I'm sorry to interrupt, but দুষ্ট লোকদের কথা হচ্ছে যে ওই সাবসিডিয়ারিটা ব্যাংকার্সরা চালায় নাই, সেই জন্য এত ভালো করেছে।
না, এটা বলে, yes, you're right, এটা বলতেই পারে। But you see, the issue is...
You should answer him.
না, এটা অফকোর্স এটা অনেকে বলতে পারে যে, কিন্তু আলটিমেটলি কিন্তু ওখানে কিন্তু ব্যাংকার এসছে এখন। ব্যাংকার আসতেই হবে। এখন the thing is that because that's why we will have to have right people in that place as well. And also the thinking process has to be different, because they will be doing everything digitally. So people working in that particular company or particular subsidiary from A to Z will have that mindset. In banking, what is happening, the moment I possibly, like in the few days back, some of our seniors, including CRO, myself, CBO, sat together and we want to do something, and we decided, yes, go ahead. But then the process started happening. How do you sort of comply this? How to do that? How to do that? You can understand then starting writing the SOP, how to do the BRD, all these typical banking thought process start happening, and you really can't take it forward. But in case of digital banking, the people who are working there, they will have that mindset. And also the fact that regulator also have a different sort of regulations for that. Like in traditional banking, I want to do a digital loan. Now, as far as central bank goes, you have to take approval for each and every digital loan that you will be launching. Prime Bank has the similar experience. I also have the similar experience, and it took me about 5-6 months to get it out of Bangladesh Bank.
But Maubhai, just
Yeah.
my apologies to interrupt, but if we compare ourselves with India, almost a similar behavioral issues, both from
Yeah.
regulators as well as from bankers. We haven't seen this sort of unique proposition in India as yet. Piyush Gupta, the famous remark of Piyush Gupta is that, we want bankers to think like fintech companies. I mean, that's
Yeah,
how he
yeah.
inspired DBS to become what it is today. So we can say that Singapore is a different mindset. But in India even, this is a unique setup that we are seeing in Bangladesh, that 10 banks joining hands together and trying to create a digital bank. Now, if taking your words that you want a fresh new start, the regulators are going to remain the same. It's the same regulators within the same regulatory environment. Because for digital banking, BRPD is not saying that it is going to be a different set of guidelines. So the people that you are going to have to run that Digi10 is obviously going to be mostly the bankers again.
You're right, Rahel. Yeah, absolutely. But we believe the regulators will be more forthcoming as well, because that's what, at least in terms of few cases, we have seen that they have been more forthcoming than before. So you see, you always start with some level of apprehension, but it happens. Look at Bikash or Rocket when it happened. There are only a simple guideline on the basis of which they launched their product. And then subsequently, it got reformed. Now you have got an absolutely policy guideline how to do it. So I think initially there could be some level of apprehension, anticipation, but in course of time it will happen. Like MFIs is not a success story everywhere. So maybe this can be a good success story here as well, which basically can be replicated, can be case studies for others as well. So we want to be optimistic, and I think we can do well, because there are, they say it's a 99% almost telco covered. What we need to have, we need more smartphone coverage. We need to have financial literacy is very important, very, very important. We also need to have data ethics and data privacy, which is very important. We also need to have a very strong cybersecurity, because there are a lot of issues we have seen instances, there are data breach, the data sharing. So these are the areas we need to be working very, very closely, so that, and also we need to have the integration capacity, because as and when there are advancement in the technology area, security area, we need to do that. Otherwise, customers will not have faith on it. And also, I think when you come in, at least there will be tagline, people will have that particular bank, because when 10 banks is supporting a digital bank, I think people will have that phase as well to start banking with that. We're very hopeful.
And thank you for bringing in the issue of data security, the data privacy, and the cybersecurity thing, because that is something that I wanted to touch on. If Hassan Bhai, if you want to comment on that, given the the progression that is happening in digital banking, as well as all these collaborations that we are talking about in innovations, what would be your take with regards to the data security, privacy, the digital literacy or financial literacy altogether?
Sure. I think before I answer that question, I think I want to supplement what Mahbub was saying regarding that DigiBank. I think initially the number of participants has been kept at 10, but I'm sure, and it was discussed, thoroughly debated in our forum, that eventually we need to open it up for fintechs, MFIs and others who have significant distribution reach. So I think that will happen, because then also we understand that this particular business will require huge amount of investment, which has to come in the form of capital. And whilst the banks are there, but we do have our own limitation, and we want to invite others to come in and to make this a successful one. Now, coming back to your question about data security, look, this is something that probably keeps every CEO awake in the middle of the night, right? Given what's happening around the world, and in fact, in a recent time, this documentary that has been released, you know. I think we are all conscious, and banks like ourselves, myself, Maubai and Solbai, we are investing quite a bit of time, money in securing our customer data, making sure the breaches don't take place, okay? And I think this is where the collaboration is important and is taking place, is with the companies who are providing the securities aspect. Because typically solutions who are providing this solution. Because a lot of time what happens is we tend to go and pick a solution because that's the best, okay? Or maybe that's the cheapest, without realizing how it will ensure your security of your ecosystem. But one thing good is our partners are educating us. We are ourselves educating ourselves, either from past experience or attending various conferences and so forth. But I think the banks in general are conscious of the fact the customer data needs to be protected. And guess what? If a customer realizes that the bank is not being able to protect his or her data, it simply is not going to stop banking with us.
I just want to add one thing here, what Hassan
Ji.
has said. It is just not bankers' responsibility as well, it is also customers' responsibility. So it's a 360-degree thing. I may have the fantastic maybe security system, but if you share your OTP or something like that, because I also get connected with customers when I'm offering them e-banking facility or something like that. So it is the entire people in that particular game has to play their role. Otherwise, just from bank side, it is not possible. That's my sort of take.
No, most certainly. I mean, that's for sure. I mean, the awareness needs to be built up all around, and I'm sure the state support or the regulators and other relevant stakeholders, policymakers, they need to support this as well. Ji Solbhai.
Can I just add one more thing to that? Mahbub Bhai said that it shouldn't only have to be the banks being aware, even customers. But I think the big thing is the government. We've talked about Digital Bangladesh, we have talked about Smart Bangladesh. But as you well know, it was in the papers a few months back that there was a huge leak of a certain bank's data. And the government was advised about it. It took time to fix that. So I think this need to be conscious, respond very quickly, needs to be filtered all around. So Smart Bangladesh is about smart citizen, smart government, smart community, smart infrastructure. So it's not going to be a one-day battle, it's going to be a continuous thing. And I think the government has a great deal to do there.
No, thank you for that remark. Just one last bit to touch on is what Mahbub Bhai briefly mentioned. Hassan Bhai, what's your take on open banking with regards to the future of the digital innovation, collaboration, and customer-centric approach?
Well, I think on a lighter note, I'm open about it, okay? But I think it requires far better appreciation for such technology and what it will mean for all of us, okay? I think I have a slightly different view in the sense as we talk about digitization, innovation and all that. But I think all of us, in our own ways, when I'm talking about a banking environment and my fellow colleagues who are sitting in front of us, every day we are trying to make things better, okay? In old days, we used to call it re-engineering. Today, we call it innovation. For a bank as a whole, there's not a whole lot that we can innovate, okay? There are certain limitations. But I think what is extremely important for us to realize, what worked yesterday may work today, but definitely not tomorrow. And our processes have become so bureaucratic. Now, is it due to experience or mindset? Maybe it's a combination of both. But I think the reason that digibank concept and all that is come about is how can we make our proposition much lighter, much faster, and without any bureaucracy. But I do agree with you, like the Dushto Lokra will say, the same mistake we will make if we allow a banker to run the digital bank or a credit CRM experienced guy running the digital processes.
I mean, what you are saying is basically starting from the scratch. But the other markets, other geographies, we have seen, things happening in a different way as well. So obviously, good wishes and best wishes for our sake of our industry that we do it in a better manner. Just one last thing from Maubai. There's a huge space, like what we have seen in India in terms of payments, the UPI. And we have seen Binimoy taking off in Bangladesh. Where do we stand, and whether a joint collaboration from 10 or 20 banks could have added more value in regards to that or not?
You picked a very important area, in fact.
Because for digital banking to
of course.
enrich
Of
further,
course.
you need that kind of a support system.
Unfortunately, ecosystem still not up as yet. And if I understand correctly, if you look at bKash as well, the total payment of this, only 7% basically has got that thing. Other is cash in, cash out. This is very, very important. The ecosystem works, the interoperability works. Till now, I think, my understanding, not all the stakeholders are very active on it. For whatever reason, the ownership is not there. So that has to be done. The interoperability, unless that happens, it is not going to take off. Because end of the day, if your ecosystem is not connected, is not a proper ecosystem, it just will be I'm putting in cash, somebody will take the cash out. It's not going to, so it is very, very important, I think, topic you have taken up. And then possibly we can go to central bank digital currency to make it more effective.
I think that's at much later stage than now.
So, but now people are talking about the cart and the horse. But yes, maybe people are saying, why not we improve our ecosystem, then you go for digital banking. But I think digital banking will push the ecosystem to get more efficient.
Definitely. Let's hope for that. Sohail bhai, okay.
I wanted to say something about open banking and data sharing. I think it is essential for banks in Bangladesh to work with the regulators to do something where you can actually have consolidated customer information so that banks don't have to duplicate it. The government, the banks, and customers can utilize this to provide all sorts of information. It's available in other countries, and I think banks should push for it. So that's my personal take in this.
Thank you, Sohail bhai. Thank you, Hassan bhai, Maub bhai, Sohail bhai. Yes.
Can I just steal? I know
Sure.
time's up, 30 seconds.
Sure.
I saw, Arfan bhai, your slide on the participation of female in our overall economic prosperity. Was definitely appreciable. But when I look at the crowd sitting in front of us, I think we need to do a better job. I think there's hardly 10% female participation. So I think in our innovation journey, right, they are a big part of this journey. And this needs to be demonstrated through their participation here. So that's for the sponsors and the organizers.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, unfortunately, that has been the case in most of the cases. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your patient hearing, and I hope the panel could touch on some of the relevant topics and issues that are very relevant to the fintech industry as well as vis-a-vis the banking industry. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bangladesh Brand Forum.